Without objection, the gentleman will hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmeyer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein, stating the government's 100,000 pages of Epstein files dwarfs the 70-odd pages of Epstein grand jury materials.
Without objection.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice and FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do.
So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's sick story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." The second document is entitled, "What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections." The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled, "Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official CIA Chief." And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. It may have held that title when he met Epstein, and then, yes.
Without objection, the gentleman will hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmeyer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein, stating the government's 100,000 pages of Epstein files dwarfs the 70-odd pages of Epstein grand jury materials.
Without objection, the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, "You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself?" You replied, according to the transcript, "There is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else." You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007 and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorneys' offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in live time.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one today.
I said We are not in the practice at the Department of Justice and FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to the social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file. And I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein?
If there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative leads.
Have you made any progress on the pipe bomb investigation January 6th? And have you made any progress on the motive of the Las Vegas shooter?
As to the first, it's an ongoing investigation, and we have made progress. As to the second, sir, I'll have to get back to you.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous
Gentleman
consent
yields back.
request.
Unanimous consent request from the gentleman from New York.
I ask unanimous consent to introduce an unsigned memorandum from July 7, 2025 that says we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties with the insignia of the Department of Justice and the FBI.
FBI Director Kash Patel has been deflecting questions for 3 hours, relying on the usual excuses: ongoing investigations, privacy concerns, and national security. Across from him sits Congressman Thomas Massie, calm, precise, and holding a manila folder full of potential evidence. The setup establishes the stakes. Patel is confident, polished, untouchable, while Massie is patient, strategic, and ready to expose the truth. The audience immediately senses that something significant is about to happen. Every glance, every pause is loaded, and the viewer begins to feel the weight of the room before a single explosive claim is made. The tension is almost cinematic, like the calm before a storm that will shake both the courtroom and public perception. The first act of confrontation begins when Massie pivots to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. He asks about 100,000 Epstein-related documents, forcing Patel into a yes or no answer. Patel initially dodges, giving generic assurances about FBI reviews, but Massie cuts him off and confirms that while all 100,000 documents were reviewed, none were released to the public. This moment is critical. It transforms abstract numbers into a striking reality for viewers. The audience begins to understand that the situation is not just bureaucratic, it's actively concealing potentially explosive information. The sheer scale, 100,000 documents, makes the cover-up feel massive, intentional, and almost cinematic, heightening the drama. The stakes feel personal, as if the audience themselves are witnessing an injustice unfold in real time. The heart of the story is the 47 seconds of silence. Massie asks Patel whether the FBI conducted targeted searches for documents mentioning powerful political figures and then elevated them to the highest classification level to hide them. Patel freezes. The silence stretches, seconds ticking by, each one heavier than the last. The script uses this pause as a character in itself. The silence becomes evidence, speaking louder than words ever could. Every second feels like a countdown to revelation, forcing the audience to confront the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes guilt is more visible in hesitation than in confession. This moment also taps into the primal drama of authority being questioned and failing under scrutiny, turning a bureaucratic hearing into a suspenseful psychological thriller that grips viewers. Once the tension peaks, Massie unleashes the receipts, 5 separate documents confirming the alleged cover-up. These include an unsigned FBI memo, whistleblower reports, a signed classification order, a confirmation from Patel's own CISO, and a retired FBI agent's account quoting Patel directly saying, "Justice is protecting these names." Each piece of evidence escalates the stakes, moving the story from bureaucratic maneuvering to moral collapse. Patel's inability to respond convincingly paints him as not just defensive, but complicit. By layering multiple sources, the narrative reinforces the scale and credibility of the alleged wrongdoing, making it impossible for viewers to ignore or dismiss. The story emphasizes that silence, combined with undeniable proof, can expose the deepest cracks in a system designed to protect the powerful. The conclusion of the narrative delivers the verdict. Massie recommends an investigation into Patel for obstruction, destruction of evidence, and perjury, while calling for independent review of the Epstein documents and classification decisions. The gavel strikes, the session ends, and Patel exits humiliated. The story then expands to the viral reaction, media frenzy, and additional whistleblowers coming forward. The audience is left with the core message: sometimes the most powerful evidence is not what is said, but what cannot be said. Silence itself becomes proof of wrongdoing. The narrative also underscores a larger theme: how institutions, when unchecked, may prioritize power and political protection over justice and truth, leaving ordinary citizens questioning the integrity of the system. It is a stark reminder that even in modern democracy, accountability often comes from persistence, courage, and the courage to confront silence.